Blue and red lights painted my pool like a cheap disco, while Brianna Cole, silk robe wet flip-flops, screwdriver raised like a scepter, jabbed at the smart lock on my gate and yelled, "Officer, arrest him!" The alarm answered for me. With that cheerful robot voice, security breach detected recording in progress as the deputy lifted his body cam toward her face like a mirror, and the whole cul-de-sac stood in their driveways filming. In that flash of sirens and embarrassment, I knew the quiet life I worked for was about to turn into one of those stories strangers argue about for years. I'm Noah Carter, just a guy with a mortgage and a small stucco place in Cedar Crest on the northwest edge of Austin, where the oak branches scribble shadows over the street, and all the mailboxes look like they ordered the same plastic uniform. My pool is simple, a blue rectangle that steals heat out of my head at dusk. And the fence around it is on my deed, my maintenance, my risk if anything goes wrong. Teens had been hopping it at night. My neighbor's lab thinks water is a birthright, and one afternoon, a toddler's hand curled around the latch while his sitter scrolled her phone, so I installed a smart lock, fingerprint auto latch battery, backup code, compliant, something that would ping my phone when a hand that didn't belong tried to make it belong. The app sent its first alert before my coffee cooled 2 denied attempts at 6:12 a.m. And when I checked the camera there, she was Brianna, our HOA president, scanning the panel with her phone like the gate had insulted her diploma. 30 minutes later, she called 911 to report me for locking the community amenity. My amenity, my fence, my water. Avery Miller stepped out calm, and sun mirrored, and I kept my voice low, because I'd learned with Brianna, the louder she looked, the clearer the truth became. She pointed at the gate and said, "He's blocking shared access." I handed the folder every Cedar Crest adult eventually owns, survey plat deed, and the deputy traced the lot lines with his finger and said, "This is private property." Brianna pivoted without blinking. "It's unsafe. A child could get trapped inside." He tilted his head, inside his own pool. I should have swallowed the line, but it slipped out. If anything's trapped, it's common sense. He snorted. She yanked the handle, the lock chirped, and she hopped back so fast a slipper went flying into my irises. 10 minutes later, she swore up and down she'd file a violation, and as she marched away, robe flapping, a small humiliation settled in my chest. I had paid for peace, and somehow I was auditioning for it on my own driveway. The next morning at exactly 6:00 a.m., she knocked like a metronome and handed me a $500 fine for unapproved electronics. The header said Article 4, Aesthetics and Visual Harmony, and harmony in her mouth sounded like a leash. I didn't take the bait. I built a ledger, saved every app log mounted. Another camera created a folder called If This Gets Stupid, because in communities like ours, stupid tends to wear a lanyard. Enter Todd. Reflective vest with iron on letters reading, Community Compliance, Associate. Clipboard paper badge, the whole costume sneaking up my side yard and testing my latch like he was picking a pocket. The lock chirped. He flinched. He backed into my pool skimmer. I stepped out and asked, "Credentials?" And he said, "Brianna sent me to document," with a pencil that didn't have a tip. He left at a speed I'd call brisk panic. Then the paper rabbits multiplied. Improper lawn-length, unregistered outdoor electronics duplicates, date-stamped like she set her printer to rage. A safety watch golf cart started looping our street with a magnetic sticker that looked official from far away, and like a dare up close, and one volunteer actually told my kids they needed HOA approval to swim in their own pool. That was the part that stung, not the message. You live here by permission. I filed a county complaint because rules are supposed to keep bikes out of storm drains, not gag your backyard, and I attached photos. The Todd video, the 6:12 a.m. attempts, the map, the bylaws. I could quote like a pastor. That night, a drone with a red LED buzzed over the water like a nosy hornet. And the next morning, our group chat hummed with a vendor line item none of us recognized. My neighbor Hank squinted at it and said, "So our dues bought the drone that trespassed on you." Classic. The emergency meeting hit like theater. Stale coffee folding chairs Brianna in a navy blazer that felt like armor rented by the hour. And when she tried to clear the room, I read Article 6C out loud. Open meeting required for enforcement or policy changes. And Tom, the vice president, stared at the paper swallowed and said, "He's right. The crack you hear right before a window gives, that's the sound the room made." She motioned to require pre-approval for any electronic device near sight lines of shared property. 2 hands went up hers, and the treasurer who practices invisibility, and Alana the secretary, voice small but steady, said, "Private safety systems are not in our scope." The vote failed. My relief was real, but my mailbox was still a piñata. Then came the night that twisted everything. At 2:03 a.m., hair undone, robe cinched, screwdriver and phone flashlight in her hands, Brianna slipped along my fence and tapped the panel like she could shame it into opening. "Unauthorized attempt detected. Please step back." The lock said gentle and bright, and when she pressed again, the siren woke the yard and lit the oaks and the fence like a halftime show. I walked out in socks, phone rolling, and she shouted, "You can't weaponize technology against the community." And I said, "Brianna, you are in my yard." And the siren didn't care about the argument, it just kept recording. Sergeant Miller arrived. "We really have to stop meeting like this." Watched the clip on my phone with the calm of a man who has seen every version of human denial, and asked her a single deadpan question that told the truth for me. "In your bathrobe?" Yeah, that happened. By lunch, someone's cousin's cousin had posted the body cam angle to a local Facebook group, title, "HOA President Caught After Midnight," and suddenly strangers were arguing about property rights and whether smart locks are ruining America, and a news van idled by the park while Hank practiced his serious face. The board went quiet. The county did not. An investigator named Simmons called voice precise as a scalpel and asked for every file I had because they were opening a review of Cedar Crest's books. Audit day didn't look like drama. It looked like a calm storm. Women in polos and flats rolling carts of boxes out of the clubhouse, while Brianna argued jurisdiction with someone holding a warrant. Hank waved a hand-drawn sign that said, "No drone zone," and I accidentally smiled for the first time in weeks. Alana pressed a manila envelope into my hand, like a spy movie, and whispered, "You should see this." Inside were invoices and emails, one labeled Plan B, where Brianna told Todd to disable or remove the illegal device before county review. There's a specific feeling when a bully writes their own confession. Not triumph, just the soft click of endgame. The forum filled with faces I'd only known as garage doors, and Simmons read findings without flair. Misappropriation of funds for private enforcement gear. Unauthorized surveillance. Purchases falsified vendor credentials. Multiple trespass incidents. Reimbursement claimed for fence repair after an incident involving a smart lock. A still frame of Brianna in my side yard with a screwdriver hit the screen, and you could hear the fluorescent lights hum. She stood 3 times to interrupt. Defamation manipulated videos. This resident hacked community devices. But the room shifted away from her each time like a tide. Then the door at the back opened, and Sergeant Miller walked in, with a thin file, and the kind of silence that gets out of the way for the point. "Cole," he said quietly, "you are being cited for trespass and for fraud related to misrepresentation of enforcement authority," and he placed the papers in her hand, while Tom announced immediate suspension pending removal, voice shaking like a man who just realized he can be in charge without being cruel. Hank clapped once loud, and then everyone else did rain. On a roof. I didn't gloat. I watched her jaw harden and her hands tremble, and I felt a strange grief for what power does to people who start thinking it is who they are. I walked home slower than I'd come, let the silence of the street fill my ears, and sat by the water until the blue stopped vibrating. The gate clicked itself shut and beeped once like a good night. People ask if smart locks divide neighbors, and I say people divide neighbors, and tech gets blamed for refusing to kneel. Rules matter when they keep kids from falling off bikes. They don't matter when they measure the shade of your trash can. The difference between protection and control is whether the thing puts its hand on your shoulder or your throat. Brianna picked the throat every time, and the only reason it stopped was because a piece of plastic and steel refused to lie. You know what I mean, so that's the story, not the heroic version, with triumph horns. Just paperwork, walking sarcasm. I swallowed, and a robot voice that kept telling the truth until the room finally heard it. Was I right to lock my gate and document everything? Or did the lock cross a line the moment a community felt small in its reflection? Tell me where you stand. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had a Brianna in an HOA at work on a committee, drop your story below. If you think neighborhoods should run on respect over fear, hit like. And if someone you know calls control harmony, share this with them and let the comments decide where the line really is.